How y'all feel about drill music? Like, do you feel like that shit made the world a more dangerous place? Or are people just bad people, realistically? Let's be honest. We can't blame it on music. Blame it on the creators if you want to be honest. I'm gonna be for real. Like, music ain't do nothing. That shit just a beat, instruments, and a voice. But we reacting to Trap University. Did drill make the world a more dangerous place? Like, how do you feel, bro? Let me know in the comments. And if so, what's your favorite drill song? What you be getting hyped to? Drop a like, subscribe if you new, and we finna get into it.
Old heads. Look at these boys. What if I told you that this was the most dangerous generation of gangbanging in Chicago? These guys. But don't just take my word for it. Look at the numbers. Unfortunately, Chicago averaged about 5 to 600 murders a year. But 1974 was by far the deadliest year in the city's history. 70 murders a month. For reference, there still hasn't been a worse decade in Chicago. So when my mom and them say, you young people messed up the streets, we used to be able to walk around without worry about getting shot. I can forgive her for not remembering 50 years ago. I've been lied to my whole life. They told me back in the day, gangs was about the community, buying the kids school supplies and making sure they was in the house when the street lights came on. These numbers ain't nothing to play with, but it wasn't just Chicago.
Saying, well, that's cap. I do know that. Like, them old heads, OGs out there, them niggas is on that. Talk about young niggas. I mean, they just ain't have the artillery, but them niggas are still sticked up. I mean, really, what's the difference between a Switch and a Uzi or a Mac? Let's be for real. Like, wow, them niggas was really doing that shit, bro. Damn, y'all could get away with it. Like, imagine all the unsolved homicides that didn't make it on that chart. Exactly my point.
New York City was seeing almost 2,000 murders a year, unheard of in any country outside of Central and South America. I've been sitting up here preaching about what drill did to us in the past 15 years. But how could this be possible? My pops graduated in 1974 and that man act like wasn't nothing going on but people smoking Reggie joints and Woodstock. So what did drill actually do to our streets today? Now, I don't like to get too deep into conspiracy theories, but the drill being connected with the prison system is definitely one I'm almost tempted to believe. But then again, I'm from Chicago, so let's go over my personal experience. Now, I'm old. I was in high school at the same time as guys like King Von, Chief Keef, and Tay Capone, and I can say that it definitely wasn't just prison taking the killers off the street. Get Back has always played a huge role. Let me explain. I went to school with a guy that dropped a song and was killed 5 days after the music video dropped. This is not as fast as when Lil Mark dropped No Competition and was killed 3 days later, but I didn't know Lil Mark. Unfortunately, a fucked up memory that I'll never forget is when I was smoking at a girl's house back in 2014 and another girl walked in and said, "You want to see Lil Mark's baby?" And she brought in his infant son, who is his spitting image. And unfortunately for this kid, who's about 11 years old now, the internet exists. And I just pray he doesn't let it get to him if he sees anything about his father. And that's one of the main differences from the 70s and now. If we didn't have the numbers, we wouldn't have a clue what happened back then. But for kids like Baby Mark, the evidence is all too clear. But back to Don D. I never heard this kid talk much. I knew he was bad, like a lot of kids he hung around, but at the time, there still hadn't been any drill rappers getting any motion outside of the main faces we know today and their affiliates. So when I saw his music videos, I was shocked. I knew very well about the new war that was starting in his area, but there hadn't really been any murders connected to these guys yet. You see, they were a younger branch of the Evans mob, a clique that had been at war for the whole decade before these guys jumped off the porch. And this war made no sense to me. Rumors eventually killed the original reason for any beef, but as I remember, it started over a fight essentially. And some older guys came back with guns, but the guys they shot at came back and took over half the neighborhood. Definitely not something you see every day. I remember several GD and even neutral blocks flip BD under the threat from the other side. But I know it was over nothing. I had a homie back in the day who personally involved himself so deep in this war, despite having no other reason than I guess he just didn't want to get bullied into flipping or changing his nation. The thing is, there was nothing that serious about the nation he was with. He was only walking around saying he was GD essentially because the older guys agreed that he was. But they were just looking at him as another body that would be in the way in case bullets started flying. One of the big guys was even having sex with his sister. So back to this guy. He became a rapper in the summer and on.
Damn, that's fucked up. That nigga was like a 6'9" before 6'9". He was getting his sister smashed, and they was just saying, yeah, nigga was a bulletproof vest in the game. Look, if you join the game, Don't be expendable or a bulletproof vest. You a shield. That's your rank. You're a shield. Dumbass.
Only 3 songs in, he was dead by December, 5 days after his last video dropped. And of course, it was his most disrespectful song. So what did this prove? The streets of Chicago are safer than they were in the 70s and the 90s when the murder rate got back to where it was in the 70s, but now it just seems so much worse. Maybe it's because the guys heavily involved were getting younger and younger, but what happened to this guy in the years leading up to his hood jumping in the streets was the drill scene made it more appealing to be in his life. This guy wasn't from the safest neighborhood, but historically it's a neighborhood full of black judges and police officers. And a lot of guys in this area never starved growing up or lived that deep in poverty. Just look at Bloodhound Lil Jeff and Q50. A lot of their family hails from around this neighborhood, and I even grew up with one of his cousins. These guys came from black families with money. It's just that playing ball and owning your own business became less appealing. Just think about this. When you were in high school, especially in the city, there were very few things that seemed more important to you than having the best outfits to come to school in and making your lifestyle look appealing on social media. And right before the drill took off, I remember how toxic it was getting. The late 2000s on Facebook in Chicago was just full of kids dropping the 5 because it looked cool on pictures, even though this was disrespecting the whole nation, something that wouldn't have even been played with 10 years before this. And little guys standing on the block just having to throw up something with their hands to look good for the picture, even if they had no real affiliation. When trying to fit in became associated with gang culture, we had a problem. And that's why I salute the kids even more that grew up in these areas and were mature enough not to try this to look cool. My old homie that I mentioned earlier, he migrated a few blocks down once it became too hot for him to continue walking around his own block. He was such a target that we used to have to walk him home in a group just to make him look like less of a target, even though we didn't even have a gun. But when he went down to this other hood with these guys he barely knew, they got pulled over riding around one day, and one of the older guys had a gun on him. Like older guys do in the hood, he told my homie that he was gonna have to take the rap for this gun. My homie stood up for himself and said no, and the other guy ended up going to jail. But from that day, the rest of the guys in that hood told him that if he ever came back, they would kill him. And with rules like this, it's a wonder that the streets ain't more dangerous. They was probably bluffing though, and he even made it out the hood and ended up going to college. In fact, going down to visit him in college was my first experience for real with how people was living outside of Chicago, and honestly something that made me want to go to college. I remember just walking around.
That part right there. Make sure you get exposure, man. Leave your hometown. Go see something other than where you've been at your whole life. Not enough people do that shit, and they get dormant. I know some people that be scared to leave their hometown to live. It's like, you gotta go experience, man. Ain't nothing there for you, man. If you're not in a bad area like this, for example, then you're blessed, but still take advantage of getting away. Go see something new. Might change up how you think or what you like, or just pick up a new interest. You never know. You might meet something, come across opportunity.
Being amazed that we could walk around from midnight to 5 o'clock in the morning without hearing a single gunshot. That's messed up. But this goes back to the structure being lost. Nobody takes their own weight. But honestly, it seems like the biggest thing structure did in Chicago was cause more murders. Because it seems like back in the 70s and 80s, when the guys told you to do something, you just did it without question, including killing your own community. And I saw the remnants of this system trickle down into my generation, but the every man for himself mentality kind of killed it because it started to look goofy for you to listen to another man, because man will mislead you in a heartbeat. And that seems to be one of the few things that at least kids starting in my generation understood growing up. Even still, it seems like back in the day, there was still some things considered off limits, like women and children. And we know that's not true today. And maybe this has something to do with my generation. I'll never forget, I knew a girl that got her face turned black and blue because after school one day, I think she went to either Inglewood or Perspectives, but she was talking crazy to one of the gang members, and she let something disrespectful about one of his dead homies slip out her mouth. And he ended up giving her a 2-piece McNugget, no drink, no fries, no napkins. And then she tried to call her brother up to the school, but this is a main way that girls get their brothers killed. My cousin went to Inglewood High School back in the 2000s, and there was a famous basketball player. He was definitely on his way to college and probably even to the NBA after that. But when his sister got into it with some guys at the school, and she called her brother up, like like any sister would, ain't no guys trying to hear about you calling your brother to do nothing to them. So when he got there, they killed him. Now, his brother did end up making it to the NBA, and I think he might have played overseas too. But it's sad that his brother didn't get to see it. But still, it's even stranger that with nothing being off limits, New York, Chicago, and even LA still have not gotten anywhere near the level of violence that they saw 30 to 50 years ago. Speaking of misleading, I gotta add in that even though everything people do is broadcasted on the internet today, pictures and videos from years ago never disappearing, people will still spread rumors that put other people's lives in danger. When the guy I mentioned earlier in this video died, I specifically remember people in the hood spreading rumors that he got killed leaving a girl's house. Only the police say he got killed on 81st and Champlain, over a mile away from the girl's house that got blamed. Regardless, this rumor put her life in danger, and she ended up moving out the state. And all of this in this video can be summed up as the spread of information being more prevalent now than ever. Some people out of town who've never been would never even consider going to Chicago due to the perceived danger that the media portrays. Now don't get me wrong, Chicago can get very scary, but always remember what the good book says about deception.
This song right here though, that song right there. But that was a little quick one, that was short, man. If y'all liked the video, drop a like, subscribe if you're new. Comment, man, what's your favorite drill song, and do you agree with this take? Did drill make the world more dangerous? Can you blame drill, or would you just say it's the people? Check out my other channel. It's my gaming channel, really. Be dropping more on that. I got more ideas. Also, I got my social links. Send me videos to react to. I'm reacting to whatever. Down in the description. I'm gonna catch y'all next video, man. Peace, man.